An autistic meltdown. An autistic meltdown is an experience of that's very painful, that's very difficult for people with autism, and it comes from possibly a number of experiences, a number of things that happen to people with autism, such as having communication difficulties, having sensory overload, um, changes that are unexpected in routines. All of these things can lead, or combinations of them can lead to autistic meltdowns. An autistic meltdown is a heightened experience of emotion. The body's flooded with stress hormones, and we seem either aggressive or very upset, crying, very emotional. And sometimes it's difficult for someone not autistic to understand why and what's happened. And it could just be that something's changed. It could just be that there's been a growing difficulty in a communication issue, that the person's not being understood and feels that they're not being understood. And that leads to these aggressive outbursts. They're not the same as tantrums. They're not someone being selfish. They're much more to do with something that's triggered a lot of stress hormones, and they're trying to respond to it. When you don't understand that you're autistic, in my experience, before I understood I was autistic, these things would happen, and I would think, I've just got a very bad temper. Why have I got such a bad temper? I need to work on this and be nicer. But I just couldn't find that I could do that. And then when I realised, and I had my diagnosis a few years ago and began to understand that it wasn't that, and these weren't tantrums, for example. A tantrum is someone being aggressive and angry, and when they get something, they go, I've got it, and they can relax. This is much more physical in that there's a lot of stress hormones that take a long time to dissipate, and the person feels really, really bad afterwards. I felt really, really bad afterwards for a long time. These things happen a lot less now because of autism awareness. Because I'm aware of what's happening, I can see that that's happening. It does happen, and then I go, it's communication difficulties. That happened because I was not being very flexible in the way that I was thinking. I was misunderstanding something, and I've realised that. And I think also, if people understand that someone is autistic, particularly in a relationship or a family setting, and begin to understand how to communicate, that there are differences in communication, that there can be a lack of flexibility in the thinking, meaning sometimes people just want to change things and go with the flow, and that's very can be difficult for someone that's autistic. Or just sometimes things that are not quite understood because we have a very logical, maybe hyper-logical, maybe very literal way of thinking. And it can lead to some communication difficulties that can just slowly escalate until the person really has an aggressive outburst, and the other person doesn't understand that at all. Why are you being so angry? Why are you being so hateful, being so horrible about this? The sort of thing people would think and say. And the autistic person can't answer that, can't understand that, because all they know is that they're it's like they losing a bit of control, and they don't really know what. My experience is I haven't really understood why this is happening, and felt very terrible afterwards, thinking, why did I do that? That didn't make any sense to me. It's so out of character, and I would do and say things out of character. You feel this need to express yourself in a very outward way. Some people turn this inwards, and it leads to a very deep crying experience, and a very sad experience of really turning it inward, and that can lead to a self-hatred, to a feeling I can't do this. I'm not a nice person. But for me, the answers have been an understanding of autism. If we understand how to communicate, we understand sensory overload. That is, we make sure that we avoid that. We avoid having lots of input at the same time. Lots of conversation while television's on, while washing machine's on, going out to somewhere that's where there's lots of unpredictable movement, like in a crowded city centre, can lead to that sort of experience. So avoiding those, but also communication, learning how to communicate with someone, if they're aware of, if your partner or family members are aware of how autism works, and that you might misunderstand things and take things literally, then you can just laugh off some of the problems fairly early on, if they before they build up. But then being aware, if it's a meltdown, it's a meltdown, and it's not the person being angry or hateful. It's that aggression isn't coming from their normal personality. It's and out of a rational decision to do something, and it's not a tantrum. They're not just trying to get their own way. They really have a lot of adrenaline flowing around in their bodies for some accidental reason, and we just need to just let the person calm down. Sometimes removing yourself from the situation is a very good thing, I found. It's like, no, I can't cope with this anymore. I'm going to get really upset and just walk away. Lie down in a darkened room, cover yourself with a blanket, something like that, and just let that adrenaline subside. Don't try to unpick it, don't try to understand it, is what I found. So that's some of my reflections on meltdowns. Thank you.